Someone you know is using information you gave them against you right now. Not necessarily with bad intentions, maybe not even consciously, but it's happening. That thing you mentioned about your finances, the goal you shared when you were excited, the fear you admitted when you were vulnerable, it's sitting in someone's mind, being filtered through their own agenda, their own insecurities, their own interests, and you put it there. Most people will never tell you this, so let's talk about it. We're taught that openness is strength, that sharing is connection. Machiavelli disagreed, not because people are evil, but because information once shared is no longer yours, and what people know about you shapes how they treat you, sometimes permanently. This isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about becoming intentional. Here are the 7 things you should never share with anyone. Please click the subscribe button. Let's continue. 1. Your weaknesses. Everyone has them. That's not the issue. The issue is who knows about yours. When you openly share your insecurities, your fears, the things that destabilize you, you hand someone a map to your pressure points. Most people won't use it immediately. They might even respond with warmth when you first reveal it. But in a moment of conflict, in a negotiation, in an argument that gets personal, that information will surface, and when it does, it lands exactly where it was designed to. This doesn't mean you never work on your weaknesses. It means you do that work privately. You process it internally, or with a therapist, or through reflection. You don't broadcast it in casual conversation. The most composed, formidable people in any room are rarely the ones who volunteered what breaks them. 2. Your financial situation. Money changes relationships, almost without exception. Tell someone you're struggling financially, and they'll quietly adjust their confidence in you, even if they never say a word about it. Tell someone you're doing well, and watch carefully. The requests start. The assumptions shift. The subtle resentment builds in people who didn't even know they were capable of it. Your financial position is nobody's business. Not your colleagues, not your extended families, not most of your close friends. When people have a specific number or impression attached to your name, that number becomes your identity in their mind. It colors every interaction after that. Keep it vague, keep it private, and let your results speak when the time is right. 3. Your long-term goals. This one surprises people, but it might be the most important point in this entire video. When you announce your ambitions before you've achieved them, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, you get a small hit of social validation that actually reduces your internal drive to follow through. Research on this is consistent, and it makes sense. The brain processes the positive response as partial success. Second, you give people something to quietly watch you fall short of. And some of them will wait for that. Not consciously, but they will. Silence around your goals protects them. It also builds something else, something powerful. When you finally arrive somewhere, nobody saw it coming. That creates presence. That creates authority. That is not luck. That is leverage. Work in private, win in public. 4. Your next move. This is related to goals, but more immediate and more practical. Don't tell people what you're about to do, not the job you're considering, not the investment you're planning, not the conversation you've been meaning to have, not the decision you're still in the middle of making. When you reveal your next move before you make it, you open yourself to interference, not always deliberate interference. Sometimes people give you advice that serves their own comfort level, not your growth. Sometimes they introduce doubt at exactly the wrong moment. Sometimes they simply talk, and information travels to places you weren't ready for. There is real power in moving first and explaining later, or not explaining at all. 5. Your personal struggles. Let me be precise here, because this can sound colder than I mean it. Having people you trust deeply is not the problem. Sharing broadly and casually is. The coworker who asks how you're doing doesn't need to know your relationship is unraveling. The wider friend group doesn't need a running update on your mental state. The acquaintance at the party doesn't need the honest answer. Here's the real reason this matters. People form impressions quickly and update them slowly. If you become known as someone who is always dealing with something, always in the middle of a crisis, always struggling, that becomes your identity to them. Even long after things have improved, that image tends to stick. Struggle in private, recover visibly. Let people see the version of you that came out the other side. 6. Who you truly trust. If someone knows exactly who your inner circle is, they know where to apply pressure. They know who can influence your thinking. They know who you would go out of your way to protect. They understand your loyalties, and loyalties are some of the most powerful leverage in any relationship. Your closest relationships deserve a degree of protection. Not secrecy exactly, but discretion, because if someone wants to get to you, they will often go through the people you care about before they come to you directly. That's not a dramatic idea. It's just how human dynamics work at their more calculated edges. Keep your inner circle close and keep it quiet. 7. Your contempt. This is the quietest one on this list, and probably the most underestimated. At some point, you'll encounter people you don't respect, situations that seem absurd to you, behavior that you find genuinely beneath your standards, and you'll be tempted to say something to a friend in a moment just to get it out. Don't. Not because you should be dishonest with yourself, because expressed contempt is a social grenade. It always gets back, always. And when it does, it doesn't only damage the one relationship, it makes everyone around you quietly wonder what you say about them when they leave the room. Hold your real assessments tightly. Share them only with the 1 or 2 people who have genuinely earned that access. To everyone else, stay warm, stay measured, stay unreadable. None of this means total silence. That's not strategy, that's isolation. And isolation makes you weaker, not stronger. The exception is what you could call a strategic mirror. 1 person, maybe 2, who have proven their discretion over time. Not someone you like the most. Not someone who's simply been around the longest. Someone who has demonstrated repeatedly and without prompting that they can hold information without weaponizing it. This person exists to help you think clearly, to reflect your ideas back to you without distortion, to challenge you in private so you walk into the world sharper and more prepared. Choose this person with real care, and even with them, build the habit of thinking before you speak. Because the discipline of restraint isn't something you turn on and off. It's something you practice until it becomes second nature. Machiavelli wasn't writing a guide for villains. He was writing for people who wanted to see the world as it actually is, not as they wished it were. The world isn't always a safe place for your inner life. That's not pessimism. That's just an honest observation about how power, information, and human nature interact. You don't have to close yourself off. You just have to become intentional. You decide what to share. You decide when. You decide who has actually earned the right to know it. Silence, real deliberate silence, isn't weakness. It's a form of discipline. And discipline, practiced consistently over time, becomes the kind of power that nobody can take from you. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone you actually trust.